A garage in East Texas. Outside, 42°. On the wall, a window air conditioner vibrates incessantly, but the air coming out of it doesn't feel like summer, it feels like January. On the floor, next to the unit, is a 208-liter plastic drum filled with water. Around the hot line of the unit, a copper coil. Approximate cost $0. That man's electricity bill in July was $87. His neighbors reached $340, and that's where the story started to get strange. Because this wasn't a $20,000 geothermal system. It wasn't a professional installation. It wasn't new technology. It was just water, copper, and an idea that the HVAC industry almost never explains to the average consumer. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this simple trick can lighten the compressor's workload, why it resembles the logic of an expensive geothermal system, and why this solution also requires great care. Because there's a fine line between a good thermal idea and a mistake capable of destroying a compressor. Last spring, I drove nearly 4 hours to a property near Nogales, Texas, to meet a retired refrigeration mechanic. He'd been running a modified window air conditioner for over 6 years. I've seen his posts on off-grid forums, blurry photos, simple design, promises too big to believe on screen. So I went to see it up close. What I found wasn't sophisticated. It was too simple. A standard 179-liter window air conditioner was installed in the garage wall, working normally, but on the outside was something you'd never see in a store. About 30 meters of 9.0mm diameter, flexible copper refrigeration tubing wrapped around the high-pressure discharge line. This line is the smaller copper tubing that runs from the compressor to the condenser. It carries superheated refrigerant gas. In a typical unit, in the heat of July, this line can operate between 71 deci and 77 deci. The system needs to remove this heat before the refrigerant continues the cycle. That's the function of the condenser, and normally it does this by pumping heat into the outside air. But here's the problem. When the outside air is 40 degrees below the douse decks, the condenser tries to pump heat into air that's already too hot. The compressor suffers, works longer, draws more electricity, and efficiency plummets exactly when you need it most. That mechanic attacked the bottleneck. The copper coil wrapped around the discharge line went down to a 208L plastic drum filled with well water. I grabbed an infrared thermometer. I measured the discharge line with the drum disconnected. 75. Then he reconnected the water circuit, and we waited 4 minutes. I measured again. Gatekeeper. A 35-degree drop before the refrigerant even reached the condenser. Then I plugged a power meter into the outlet. The unit was drawing 640 W. On the nameplate, the rated power was 1150 W. The compressor didn't seem to be struggling. He was working more lightly, with much lower head pressure, because the refrigerant arrived at the condenser already pre-cooled. The water was doing part of the condenser's job, almost for free. There in front of me, a cheap air conditioner delivered a thermal logic similar to that of a professional geothermal system. Same physics, different price, but he didn't invent it. He learned it on an off-grid forum, and the person on the forum had learned it from a retired commercial refrigeration technician who had been using water-cooled condensers in restaurant cold rooms since the 1980s. This knowledge has been circulating for decades among people who work with real refrigeration, but it almost never reaches the consumer. And the physics behind it is not new, it's not experimental. It's over 170 years old. In 1852, at the University of Glasgow, William Thomson, later known as Lord Kelvin, described the theoretical basis of the heat pump. The idea was simple. Moving heat from one place to another consumes much less energy than generating heat from scratch. A machine designed to transfer heat can deliver several units of thermal energy for each unit of electricity consumed. This relationship has a name, coefficient of performance. It's one of the most important numbers in refrigeration engineering. And that's exactly what separates an efficient air conditioner from a machine that only burns energy. Kelvin's theory remained on paper for decades until, in 1912, in Switzerland, engineer Heinrich Bohl registered a patent for a geothermal heat pump. The idea was to use tubes buried in the ground, with fluid circulating through them. In summer, the earth would act as a heat sink, in winter as a heat source. The concept was solid, but the historical moment was bad. Cheap coal and oil made efficiency almost irrelevant. The patent was forgotten. Then, at the end of the 1940s in Indianapolis, Robert Weber suffered a curious accident. He was testing a freezer in the basement when he touched the hot tube coming out of the compressor. He almost burned his hand. That tube was throwing away the heat removed from inside the freezer. Weber asked a simple question. What if this heat were captured instead of wasted? He ran copper pipes from the hot side of the freezer to the ground outside the house. The fluid circulated through the buried circuit, taking advantage of the Earth's more stable temperature and releasing heat inside the house. Then, a fan distributed this air throughout the rooms. The following year, Weber sold his coal-fired heater. He heated the house using the same physics that Kelvin had described almost a century earlier. By 1948, the idea was already in commercial use. A geothermal system was installed in the Commonwealth Building in Portland, Oregon, and later recognized as a landmark in mechanical engineering. Around the same time, Professor Carl Nilsson of Ohio State University built an open-loop residential geothermal heat pump in his own home. The science was proven. Engineering knew it worked, and at the heart of it all was a simple physical fact. Water transfers heat much better than air. In some conditions, dozens of times better. This is not opinion, it's heat exchange. When your air conditioner's condenser tries to blow heat into outside air at 35 degrees or 42 degrees, the compressor fights for every degree. When that same heat encounters cooler water or soil at a more stable temperature, the compressor works with less effort. The machine is the same, the refrigerant is the same, the thermostat is the same, but the consumption changes. Research on water-cooled condensers shows significant gains in the coefficient of performance. In some scenarios, electricity consumption can drop significantly compared to air-cooled systems. This is why geothermal systems are so expensive. A company might charge from $15,000 to $5,000 to install a circuit in the ground and connect everything to the home's HVAC system. What they're essentially selling is access to simple physics, using a more stable thermal mass to ease the compressor's workload. But here's the tricky part. This logic has almost disappeared from ordinary homes, and not because it stopped working. In 1902, Willis Carrier created a machine to solve a humidity problem in a Pittsburgh printing plant. That project became the basis of modern air conditioning. In the following decades, machine-cooled air became a symbol of progress. The modern home was supposed to be sealed, controlled, and dependent on equipment. Meanwhile, passive solutions, water cooling, ground contact, and hybrid strategies began to seem old-fashioned, improvised, or even primitive. The machine won the narrative, and when a technology wins the narrative, everything else begins to disappear. Technical codes began to be organized around conventional mechanical systems. Architecture courses began to teach thermal comfort, as if the main answer was always equipment. Supply stores began to sell what the market recognized. Technicians began to install what the codes allowed, and inspectors began to approve only what fit on the form. Technology wasn't exactly refuted, it was erased from professional memory. Think about the technician who shows up at your house. He probably never learned this type of solution in technical school. He didn't see it on his licensing exam. The store where he buys parts might not even have the right materials, and the inspector can't approve a solution that the local standard doesn't clearly describe. So the consumer is stuck with a single idea. Buy a bigger machine, change the compressor, replace the unit, pay more for energy, and when it breaks down, buy another one. This is where physics meets the market. The air conditioning industry in the United States moves tens of billions of dollars. Millions of homes depend on air conditioning. And in the hottest months, residential consumption explodes. Families open their electricity bill in July and feel the weight even before they finish reading the number. This discomfort has become part of a gigantic market. That's why a 40-inch copper coil inside a water drum never fit well into this story. It's too simple, too cheap, too difficult to turn into a large contract. But before anyone thinks about copying this tomorrow, it needs to be clear. This video explains a technical principle. It is not authorization to tamper with a pressurized system, electrical components, or refrigeration circuit without knowledge. Refrigerant, compressor, condensation, and electricity don't forgive improvisation. If in doubt, call a qualified technician. Now, if you live in a house, a country house, an apartment, or don't own any land at all, you still need to understand the most important number in this story. It's called the condensation temperature differential. The logic is simple. Take the temperature of the discharge line, then compare it to the temperature of the medium absorbing the heat. In a normal case, this medium is the outside air. In the Texas garage, the discharge line was at 75 wing, and the outside air was at 40 Celsius. The difference was 33 degrees C. The compressor needed to overcome this gap to push heat out. When the water drum entered the system, the line dropped to 40 C. The water was around 20 C. The difference dropped to 20 C. This means a reduction of about 39% in the thermal effort the compressor had to face. This number changes everything because it shows that the problem isn't always the air conditioner itself. Often, the problem is where it tries to expel the heat. If the condenser rejects heat into the air, it suffers. If it rejects some of that heat to more stable water or soil, it breathes. And almost no one talks about this when selling an air conditioner. The simplest version of this system uses some basic elements: flexible copper tubing for refrigeration, type L ACR, a water drum, good thermal contact with the hot line, and in some cases, a small circulation of water. But the most important detail is this. The sealed refrigerant circuit must not be cut, punctured, or opened. The coil remains outside. It only touches the hot line to remove some of the heat. It doesn't go inside the tube, doesn't interfere with the gas, and doesn't alter the refrigerant charge. This is what separates a thermal idea from a dangerous intervention. The contact point needs to be well made. The greater the contact between the metals, the better the heat transfer. Thermal paste or aluminum tape can help, but any assembly needs to be kept away from electrical components and protected against condensation. Water and electricity should never come into contact. The drum is not a toy either. A container with 208 liters of water weighs over 200 kilos. It needs to be stable, on level ground or partially buried. If it tips over, it can cause an accident. In more stable versions, some designs circulate the water through a hose buried about 30 to 45 centimeters deep. The soil helps cool the water. The water helps cool the hot line, and the compressor works at lower pressure. The principle resembles a geothermal circuit, but on a much smaller scale, and precisely for this reason, it should not be treated as a miracle. It's not free energy, it's not magic air conditioning, it's not a machine that violates physics, it's just heat exchange. And heat exchange always depends on temperature, flow, contact, safety, and maintenance. There is also a dangerous limit. If the discharge line cools down too much, there may be a risk of liquid refrigerant returning to the compressor. This can cause serious damage. Therefore, in any system of this type, the temperature needs to be monitored. In the example observed, the safe range was around 35 days in the discharge line. Below that, cooling should be reduced. The goal isn't to freeze the line, it's to relieve the compressor. This difference matters. When everything works correctly, the air conditioner behaves as if it were operating on a much milder day. The refrigerant reaches the condenser in better condition, the compressor makes shorter cycles, consumption drops, and the delivered air can be more stable precisely at the worst moment of summer, the moment when air-cooled systems begin to lose performance. That's why this idea is so powerful, not because it's perfect, but because it reveals a hidden weakness of the common air conditioner. It doesn't fail simply because it's old. It suffers because it needs to blow heat into an environment that's already too hot. And when you understand this, you start to look at the entire air conditioning system differently. The question ceases to be, which machine should I buy? And becomes, where is this machine blowing the heat? This question applies to a house in the United States, to a farm, to a workshop, and also to Brazil. Because in hot, humid regions with ever-increasing energy bills, the problem isn't just producing cold air, it's removing heat without forcing the compressor to work at its limit all the time. The industry prefers to sell power. Physics prefers to reduce effort. And this difference can directly appear on the electricity bill. But here's the plot twist. The future of air conditioning may not lie in ever larger machines. Perhaps it lies in returning to the home design what has been forgotten. Soil, water, shade, thermal mass, proper ventilation, and hybrid systems that relieve the machine before it collapses. Modern air conditioning doesn't need to disappear, but perhaps it should never have worked alone. That's what the garage in Texas showed. A water drum, a copper coil, a compressor breathing better, and a question that the industry rarely puts in its advertising. How much of your electricity bill comes from a machine trying to blow heat into the worst possible place? Now I want to know from you. In the hottest month of the year, how much is your electricity bill? And in which region do you live? Write in the comments. Each climate has a different soil temperature. Each region has a different energy cost.